Chapter 65, Actual Battle First, Demonstration Later 2. However, Deng Wei had no intention of regretting his decision. Who cared about these things on the battlefield? Zhu Tui, how are you? Do you need to see the school doctor? Mr. Wen Xiao asked anxiously. Zhu Tui waved his hand, indicating that he was fine. Deng Wei was eager to go. He pointed at Zhu Tun and said, "Are you still coming?" He had been put at a slight disadvantage just now because it happened too suddenly. Now, Deng Wei wanted to play another round. Zhu Tui looked at Deng Wei's provocative gaze and wiped off the blood from his nose. He slowly stood up. Again. All right, Deng Wei gave Zhu Tui a thumbs up. Be careful, this time, I'll go all out to avoid your attacks and take you down. Bring Eton. The next instant, as soon as Mr. Wen announced the start of the battle, Deng Wei darted forward again. Deng Wei, who had dashed out this time, immediately executed a series of fancy jumps. It was like dodging a sniper rifle. It dodged the invisible mental all while rapidly approaching Zhu Tui. It had to be said that Deng Wei's battle tactics were rather useful. Deng Wei even deliberately shielded his eyes with his hands to prevent his eyes from being pierced. However, no matter how fancy Deng Wei's battle tactics were, Zhu Tui's mental senses still managed to capture the trajectory of his movements. Zhu Tui only needed to think to set up the mental all. It could be done in an instant. Furthermore, Deng Wei had left some space between the hand that was protecting his eyes and his body to allow him to see. Zhu Tui could rotate the mental all between Deng Wei's hand and his eyes. It will directly explode his eyes. However, the kindness in his heart prevented Zhu Tui from doing that. The explosion was too brutal. Even with the medical technology of the Great Genetic Age, an eyeball could not be repaired once it exploded. They could only install artificial eyes. Zhu Tui instantly placed the mental all at Deng Wei's throat. Deng Wei, who was pouncing forward, swayed slightly as if he had sensed something strange. Then, the side of Deng Wei's neck hit the mental all violently. The stronger Deng Wei's speed was, the more powerful the impact of the mental alls. Deng Wei staggered from the impact. However, he relied on his exceptional balance to turn around and jump. He kicked towards Zhu Tui continuously. The series of kicks had immense power. The first kick sent Zhu Tui sprawling onto the ground. The second kick was aimed toward Zhu Tui. Their target was Zhu Tui's unprotected face. The mystery branch students instantly let out a cry of surprise. Zhu Tui protected his face with his hand at the critical moment. Deng Wei stomped his foot fiercely onto Zhu Tui's forehead. A large kick landed on his face. Bang! The back of Zhu Tui's head hit the floor violently before bouncing back. Even though Zhu Tui was wearing protective gear, he still felt dizzy from the impact. There was a little more color in his eyes. It must have been a heavy blow to his face. His eyes were bloodshot. You've gone overboard, Deng Wei. You've gone overboard. Thesis, a demonstrational, not a real battle. I didn't ask you to torture people. The mystery branch students started to shout. Gong Ling and the students from the School of Enlightened Mind were so nervous that they wanted to run onto the stage to see how Zhu Tui was doing. Suddenly, Zhu Tui, who was lying on the ground, raised a hand. I am alright. Zhu Tui slowly sat up again after he said those words with difficulty. As a teacher, Wen Xiao also ran in front of Zhu Tui at this moment. Zhu Tui, let me call the school doctor for you. The school will foot the medical expenses for the injuries you sustained during the battle drill. You don't have to. I'm fine. Zhu Tui's tone was very determined. Wen Xiao was a little frustrated. All of the first-year mystery branch students were looking at Zhu Tui anxiously, yet they could not forcefully suppress Zhu Tui. All they could do was watch as Zhu Tui stood up nervously. Zhu Tui, who was standing, looked a little terrifying. There was blood at his mouth and nose. His forehead was covered in bruises, and his entire left eye was swollen. There were abrasions all over it. Deng Wei, who had been reprimanded by the entire mystery branch's first-year cohort, looked at the furious first-year cohort below the stage with an unyielding gaze. This is a battle drill. The actual battle is first, and the drill is later. Furthermore, we are genetic newcomers. we would have to face 10 times, 100 times, or even more danger in the future. If you can't even accept such a small threat, why did you come to the Wuxia Genetic Evolution College? Deng Wei's tone was arrogant. He finally looked toward Wen Xiao. Mr. Wen, am I right? Wen Xiao nodded with a heavy expression. That makes sense. You are right. The actual battle is first and the drill is later. Would you still dare to come? Zhu Tui, who was slowly standing, interrupted Wen Xiao. He looked toward Deng Wei. Hey Emph, I'll entertain you to the end if you dare. Deng Wei was very confident and arrogant. All right. Zhu Tui, whose face was covered in blood, nodded. He then looked toward Wen Xiao. Mr. Wen, since this is a battle drill, can I use all of my abilities? Zhu Tui asked. Of course. Wen Xiao nodded. Student Deng Wei, I have a very famous ability. Do you know it? Can I use it? Zhu Tui asked. Super Soybean? Deng Wei naturally did not refuse. He had already said that he had to do it in person. How could he slap himself in the face? Of course. The next instant, Zhu Tui wiped the blood off his face and spat out a mouthful of blood. He then spoke to the audience. Which student brought soybeans? I didn't bring soybeans today. Below the stage, the 800-odd first-year mystery branch students were utterly defeated. Who would bring soybeans to class? Wouldn't he have brought along cute snacks even if he had a snack? Who would bring soybeans? Below the stage, the 800-odd first-year students of the mystery branch looked at each other. No one brought soybeans. On the stage, Zhu Tui was also frustrated. None of them had soybeans. A round one would do. Just don't make it too large or too small, Zhu Tui said. The 800-odd students from the mystery branch started searching for their pockets. There aren't any in the male students. The button was a little round, but it was flat. Several female students even started to look at their jewelry. Gong Ling was the most anxious. She looked at his body. There were no round accessories. Her gaze suddenly landed on the pearl necklace around her roommate's neck. There was a dark blue pendant on her pearl necklace. It was very beautiful. The pearl was very round. Kinking, give these to pearls for emergencies. Zuo Kinking froze. She instantly understood what her roommate meant. After a moment's hesitation, Zuo Kinking removed her necklace, twisted open the clasp, and retrieved 3 round pearls for Gong Ling. Is that a now? It's old B now. Gong Ling immediately jogged toward the stage. She had an imposing manner when she ran. Super fierce. Student Zhu Tui, this is for you. Thank you. Zhu Tui fetched over the pearl and weighed it in his hand. The pearl had a nice texture. He slowly stood 10 meters in front of Deng Wei. Yes, I held back during the previous 2 times. This time, we'll have a real battle then a drill later on. Be careful. Zhu Tui's voice was a little hoarse. All right, you should be careful. I'll still use my full strength. Deng Wei nodded. 3 seconds later, Mr. Wen announced the start of the battle. Deng Wei once again pounced toward Zhu Tui like a panther released from its cage. With his previous 2 experiences, Deng Wei's battle tactics had become more varied and unpredictable. It was all to avoid the invisible mental alls. This time, Deng Wei had learned his lesson. He understood that the reason the mental all had injured him was that he was very fast. Deng Wei spent more than a second infiltrating an area of 3 meters in front of Zhu Tui before he unleashed his power. He was like a flying dragon. He took to the air and continuously kicked toward Zhu Tui's head. Mental all. The sudden appearance of the mental all caused Deng Wei, who had just taken to the air, to stagger. The mental all had been placed in front of his eyes. However, Deng Wei managed to avoid being hit in the eyes and was hit in the chest by the impact. While he was staggering and falling, Deng Wei pushed with his left hand. His waist twisted like an earth dragon as he supported himself with his arms and sprinted. He charged toward Zhu Tui with both legs. Killing intent suddenly flashed past Zhu Tui's eyes. Whoosh! Whoosh! The sound of something piercing through the air rang out. Deng Wei let out a dull grunt almost instantly. His left leg suddenly became weak and his stomach violently contracted. Deng Wei, who was about to kick, suddenly fell to the ground. Almost instantly, Deng Wei could not help but let out a pathetic cry. Everyone was shocked. The students were all dumbfounded. The next instant, fiery applause rang out from below the stage. Wen Xiao's expression suddenly became a little ugly. This matter has become a little too serious.